I knew I was different than most children, but I didn't know what it was until one day I went to see Ellen Solomon, an audiologist, and learned I process information differently. My brain was delayed at communicating people's responses, so it took longer for me to translate their messages and understand what others said before I responded. I always found it very frustrating to talk. She explained that I had an auditory processing disorder. At the time, I didn't even understand what the audiologist was saying. I thought, does this mean I'm dumb? Can I not learn to read or write? Will I always be slow in class? All of these questions got answered in time, and the feeling of hopelessness went away.
APD is the measurement to see if the sound gets from the ear to the brain. So someone who has auditory processing disorders has normal hearing, but somewhere from the ear to the brain, there's a breakdown in the communication of the neurological system. So what we are trying to figure out is pretty much where it happens, because you can tell by our testing the site of what they call the site of lesion, where in the brain it's not processing or connecting, but it can also tell us what kind of distorted sound or situations might make it difficult for the child to hear. The symptoms of it are that the child asks for repetition frequently. They appear to misunderstand what somebody's saying. A lot of times they're looked at as possibly having attention deficits because they are having difficulty understanding or paying attention in class, and that's the first diagnosis that everyone looks for is like, oh, they're ADD and they can't pay attention. So what a parent should do is, if their child's in schools, go to the guidance office and talk to the guidance counselor and their team of professionals and talk about what the teacher sees in the classroom versus what the parent sees at home. A lot of times, in order to differentiate whether it's auditory processing or attention deficit, they'll have someone do what they call a time on task test for the child to see if they're really paying attention in class versus just the perception that they're not paying attention. And so if a parent suspects after talking to people that this still exists, that there is an auditory processing disorder, then they might want to go to an audiologist for that testing. A true auditory processing battery is a group of tests that taps into the auditory system in different ways. I like to tell parents that it puts the auditory system under stress. So you're looking at different types of auditory skills. One is listening in noise or to a distorted signal. For example, we'll have words and a cafeteria noise in the same ear. And the child has to tell us what the word is. So we want to see, does that background generic kind of noise interfere with them? Or the word is filtered where only the mid and low frequency sounds they can hear, and the high frequency sounds are wiped out, and then the child has to be able to do what's called auditory closure and fill in what their ear is missing by their knowledge of the language system. So that's one of the components. Another is listening to two different things at the same time and processing both. That's a test of binaural interaction. And so basically a child may have to listen to either numbers or words, and different ones are presented to each ear at the same time. And that's why you need to go to an audiologist, because we're the ones who have the equipment, the technology to do that testing. And you can see which ear hears better than the other ear, or if they're both the same. And so that when you're talking about learning in school or even in a social environment, if your right ear hears better than your left ear, so you know to position yourself in that way. Another test that we do is looking at how they hear when there are other people talking and ignoring the other message. So they have to listen to someone, but yet ignore a louder speaker. The last area you look at is what we call temporal processing, and that is our ability to hear intonation and pitch differences in communication, rhythm differences. So for example, if you are unable to hear that, you may not understand sarcasm, or something as simple as determining the correct punctuation at the end of a sentence because not hearing the sound go up at the end. Or another instance would be when a person has an accent. They speak in a different rhythm, even though they're speaking English, or a different kind of intonation pattern. And if a student cannot understand that, then I wouldn't want to put them in a classroom with a teacher who has an accent.
Well, once I found out, then it made me feel like, okay, now I can research it and find out what's out there to help her and to learn strategies and skills to make her be a better productive student, and also to learn how to cope with it. So as she got older, she knew what she needed to do in order to function in the everyday world.
We base it on age norms. So we know that the auditory system doesn't fully develop until you're 12 years old, and that's like the average. So what happens is our right ear develops before our left ear. So having a left ear deficit is very common. However, more than what's expected, if you compare that child with other children in the classroom, they probably are hearing better out of their left side. A classroom full of 7-year-olds, most of them are not hearing very well out of their left ear when it's noisy. So that's just something that people don't really know. So we look at age norms, and then we go from there. Over time, we've been doing this in our office for like over 10 years now. We've noticed there are children who are almost like delayed in their auditory development. It's a neuromaturational delay, and that eventually it does come and it does improve and become normal. It just took them a little longer to get there. And I'll see parents, we retest every 2 years, and they'll say, it's like all of a sudden they can hear everything's good, and it's just because it just took them a little time. When I show them the actual tests and tell them what the child had to do and how they can do it, it's very eye-opening to them. It's like, oh, maybe it's not attention issues. If you can do it with your right ear and you can't do it with your left ear, or vice versa, then your attention is not interfering. Mm-hmm. It's the ear that's interfering. If they can't do it with both ears, then maybe the attention is interfering. Mm-hmm. And usually what we do is we recommend preferential seating so that the child is near to the teacher. Some children will use what's called an FM system, which we will provide as part of the school system, where the teacher wears a microphone and the child wears a receiver, basically little earphones or earbuds, where they hear the teacher as if the teacher's sitting on their shoulder. They hear directly in their ear. So what we're trying to improve is the signal-to-noise ratio. The teacher's voice is louder than the other competing messages and noise in the classroom. We'll have a teacher gain the child's attention, ask them to repeat, have the child repeat what was said. Because I always tell this to parents, most of the time the parent or the adult is repeating. So you might as well get the child's attention first, have them own that listening situation, have them repeat it to you, and then you'll know that they heard it. Now, if they forget it, then you're dealing with memory issues. So you really, but this way they heard it and they're doing it.
At the beginning, just to be very patient with them, to make sure that they are allowed enough time to respond, to give their answers so they're not feeling frustrated, to do different types of activities where then at that point it could be more of a game but fun to do, such as maybe aerobics, where they're listening to a computer program, and in that program they are accomplishing different skills and tasks which will help them with the auditory processing, to give them maybe a set of pictures and have them rapidly tell you what they are, to get their brain kind of retrained in a sense so they could use those skills when they are answering questions in the classroom.
Pre-learning new vocabulary words. a new vocabulary word, like a science word like photosynthesis, to a 7-year-old may sound like a foreign word to them. They've never heard it before. So they're trying to decode it or listen to it if they have auditory processing, and they're slower at processing it, and therefore they may not understand, and they're missing the whole explanation at the end after that. Because they're like, what they say? It's like someone saying a foreign word to you. So if we teach them beforehand, they'll say, oh yeah, I know that word, and then they can listen to the explanation, and it makes things easier for them.
I used a program called Aerobics. It's a multimedia auditory development program, and it focuses children's attention on the sounds of words and teaches a full range of auditory processing. You know, phonics and language skills, critical for reading, spelling, and academic success. They have a website. It's www.aerobics.com. You can see it up here. I went to their page to their product tour, so you can kind of understand and see maybe some of their software. There's different guides for teachers, the different levels from K to 3rd grade, and you can see the different types of assessments and forms that they have available for parents that want to get aerobics for children. I found this product a success. We're going to actually take a little tour right here. I'm going to click on this, and then you'll be able to see kind of like what the program is about. It gives you a small sample of it, but it's evolved, especially over the years now that I don't use aerobics, but it's still a great program. So let's click it and see if we can go through this together.
Rap-a-tap-tap, rap-a-tap-tap. It'll be so cool, it'll be so neat. Click on the mouse once for each syllable you hear. Listen.
Right not, Sir Russ. Right not, Sir Russ.
So when I was younger, I would probably have a hard time hearing the syllables of that. So we can see, like with the notes, that there's 4, ri, na, sor, us. And then it'll just kind of have students interact. And if you were using this program, you'd be the one that would be clicking 4 times in 1 square, 2, 3, 4, and then you'd see the notes come up here, and that would reference, and then you'd usually get a gold star, or they would play a song. So let's see what they do now. Maybe it doesn't work. Okay, let's do this again. Maybe I'm not supposed to stop it. Okay. So as it's loading...
Rap-a-tap-tap, rap-a-tap-tap. It'll be so cool, it'll be so neat. Click on the mouse once for each syllable you hear. Listen.
Right not, Sir Russ. Right not, Sir Russ.
You've got the beat. Listen.
Candy. Candy.
Way cool.
Awesome. So you saw that. So candy had 2 syllables. And when you're younger, you usually have an extremely hard time hearing the different syllables, especially if you have a teacher with an accent, or you have someone that maybe doesn't, maybe English is their second language, and she's a friend of yours. You have a hard time understanding and hearing what they're saying. So this program is extremely helpful. I used to play it probably 3 to 4 times a week for at least an hour and a half to 2 hours, and my mom would always reward me by using gold stars to when I would get to the next level, and there was always incentives. And I always enjoyed this program because it was hands-on. As you can see there's great feedback. It's instantaneous. It's not like doing a paper and then waiting and turning it into a teacher, seeing what your results are, because you have that instant feedback with this program. It has a lot of cool different programs in it. Like this is just one of them, using the people and music and drum sets, but I remember them having alligators and ducks and penguins, and there's pirates, and so there's a lot of different games that go along with it. I think it was like called Paint the Penguin, Pesky Pirates, there's Hippo Heroes. So when you get into the program, there's a lot of different programs within aerobics. So I definitely say check it out. It's www.aerobics.com, and you can see more of the different tours of the software program, the research and the professional development that goes along with it. If anything, if you go to resources, you contact them. There's also a trial period too. So, yeah, I'd highly recommend it if you have a child with APD to use aerobics.
It's wonderful. Again, aerobics, there is also a computer program called Fast Forward that works on auditory skills. There are games like Simon, where they're listening to different sounds, or Bop It is a good one. For memory, for auditory memory, it tells the kids what to do. Stratego, because you have to listen for information and act upon it. So a lot of the technology that children use nowadays is very visual. That's a very important part to it. It's to tell the parent and the child. First of all, the child, by telling the parent, and the child's there while we're talking about it, they are understanding that it's not something wrong with me. It's just I always give them hope, because I always believe that it's a delay and not a disorder, until they're 12, 14 years old. If I don't see any improvement, then I feel like, this is just the way it is right now. That's why I always tell the children when they walk in, that we're just going to find out which ear hears better when it's noisy. Right ear or left ear. There's nothing right or wrong about it. So it just tells us what is. So you know what to do to make it easier for you. And so I try to approach it from that vantage point, where the child just say, it's easier when you're with your friends, when you're walking down the ramp. So you stand on this side, and then your friends are here, and you'll understand what they say. Because I hear that, they're having social issues.
Not everybody understands, because with that, it's not like you have a hearing loss. So if you look at an audiogram, your hearing's normal, so it's getting them to understand. It doesn't have to do with I'm not hearing. It has more to do with the fact that I'm not processing the information. It's taken me a longer time to take that information and process it. So I think that is the key, is to get them to understand, yes, she's able to hear, or he, but it's the processing of the information. Once they receive that information, it may take them longer to process it to get their answer back out, or once they receive that information, it may take them longer to write it down. So at that point, I would say, to have an audiologist come in to explain it to administration. You could have a speech language pathologist come in. You need to have that support system in place.